All right, everybody, welcome back to Watch the Obsession live stream and chat. And this evening, for the first time in a while, and I'm so happy to finally be talking about this case again. I have been following it quite a bit, just not making content on it because, there's only so much content one person can make in a lifetime or in a span of time. We are going to be talking about the DELPHI case. So, for those of you that have been following the DELPHI case at all recently, you might know that there have been a number of motions and responses and filings and all kinds of crazy stuff going on in the court having to do with Richard Allen's defense attorneys. So I'm going to start off, let me tell you what we're going to be getting to. Just a few hours ago, Judge Gall, Fran Gall, the judge on the case, who booted off Richard Allen's defense attorneys, the attorneys of his choice that he said he wanted on the case, those attorneys with their own attorneys representing them, and we're going to get into why that is and all of that in this live stream, filed a writ of mandamus asking a higher court, the Indiana State Supreme Court, to put them back on the case and to remove Judge Gall from the case. So just a few hours ago, Judge Gall filed her response, even though she has not been well, she has not been in court, she has been at home dealing with whatever sickness she has. People are wondering, is she going to be able to file her response in a timely manner? How sick is she? We do not know. So we are going to take a look at that. And my primary issues of concern with all of this are Richard Allen's 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendment rights. So we're going to take a look at how all of that is affected. So starting off, and sorry you already watched this, Sub Rosa, but I just made a little video. It's uploaded. I just want to get us all on the same page, up to date on where we are now in the DELPHI case. So I'm going to bring that into the stream, and everybody check it out. Hope you enjoy. Let me get a different view there so I'm not right in your face. Okay, here we go. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Watch the Obsession. Thank you so much for taking time to watch this video. Please consider clicking like, and if you're new to us, subscribe. We would love to see you come back. Today, we are going to be talking about the DELPHI case and where the case is now and do a little recap of the case. So what is going on now in the DELPHI case? Well, the attorneys, Richard Allen, the accused attorneys, his chosen attorneys, I should add, and the judge of the case of the double homicide death penalty case are in a major battle in the Indiana Supreme Court. Now, essentially, there's a case within this already sordid and massive case. Now, remember, it took 5 years for law enforcement to even arrest and charge a suspect in this case, and that suspect was Richard Allen. Richard Allen, to this day, sits in jail awaiting trial, except let me clarify, it's not jail that he's sitting in. It's the much more harsh prison that he is sitting in. It's a high security prison, and apparently they say he's in there to protect him. When you see photos of Richard Allen before he was arrested or the day that he was arrested as compared to now or even recently, it is clear to see that Richard Allen is not doing well at all. In fact, one of the complaints made by Richard's attorneys before they were kicked off the case was that he was being treated poorly by the guards because the guards were odorous. They wore odorous patches on their uniforms, which seemed to many like an unhinged claim by Richard's attorneys until the state, in an unlikely admittance, came forth and said, yeah, they wore odorous patches on their uniforms, but now they are ordered to remove them, essentially. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me go back. On February 14th, 2017, the bodies of Abigail Williams and Liberty German were discovered in the Monon High Bridge Trail, part of the DELPHI's historic trails in Delphi, Indiana. After the girls had disappeared from the trail the previous day, they were eventually found. The murders have received extensive media coverage, in part due to the video and audio recordings released by law enforcement that came from Liberty German's smartphone, which recorded an individual crossing the bridge who is believed to be the killer.
It was a mystery that devastated two families, terrified a small community, and touched the world. The murders of two young girls, Abby Williams and Libby German. The case became known as the DELPHI murders. The setting? A small Indiana town of just 3,000 people. On February 13th, 2017, Libby and Abby went hiking. The two teenagers were good friends and had the day off from school. The weather was unseasonably warm. But when Libby and Abby didn't show up at their designated pickup time, their families began to worry, and they began to search. Then, the next day, the unimaginable. The bodies of the two girls were found, both victims of murder. Over the course of the next 5+ years, there were no answers, no arrests, just a series of disjointed clues, like two sketches of suspects that looked nothing alike, a video of the suspected killer, and a short audio recording of his voice. Then things took a strange turn. Police said they were looking for anyone connected to a fake social media account under the name Anthony Schatz. The account had nothing to do with the male model in the photos. Instead, it was connected to this man, who was arrested for child porn. The arrest of Richard Allen for the murder of the girls soon followed. Someone who was not on anyone's radar.
On August 26, 2022, a suspect was taken into custody. That was Richard Allen. And on October 31st, the suspect was charged with 2 counts of murder. This was described as the first major break in the case that captivated the nation's attention for nearly 6 years. Now, going back to more recent times, the defense says that Richard Allen did not do this at all, that he is not guilty of committing this crime. They say this crime was done by Odinists. What are Odinists, you may say? Well, Odinism is a pagan religion that kind of morphed in the United States prison system into a cult group. The defense put forth a 126-page document detailing the defense's theory of an alternative suspect, as it would be called in legal terms. The defense's theory of an alternative suspect is that this person or persons is a member of this Odinist group. And this assertion was supported in great detail in this document. Among those details were things like the girls' bodies were arranged in such a way, and that the bodies were placed and arranged in a ritualistic fashion. Some say they were arranged to represent ruins or symbols of this so-called religion. There were sticks placed on the body that it is said were also made to be in shapes or symbols that were from the Odinist religion. There was even a nearby tree marked with blood in the shape of a rune.
Now, here's what we know about that crime scene from Richard Allen's defense that was outlined in court documents. Libby was found flat on her back, her left arm stretched above her head, touching the base of a tree, and her right arm was placed along the side of her body. One large tree branch had been placed on her left shoulder. This branch was so long that it extended above Libby's head several feet and below her legs for several feet as well. 2 smaller branches formed a V where her legs joined her body, with both sides of the V extending upward toward Libby's head, with one branch extending to the left of Libby's head and the other to the right of Libby's head. The last of the 4 branches extended across Libby's body on a line from her right shoulder to her left shoulder. Abby, just a few feet away from Libby, her body not parallel to Libby, but rather at an angle, with Abby's legs just a few feet from Libby's legs. However, both of their heads, were found a few feet apart from each other. Abby was found on her back. Abby's elbows were bent, with her right and left arms both placed on her chest. Abby's left hand and arm near the left side of her face, and her right hand and arm near the right side of her face. Also, Abby's left leg was straight while her right leg was bent at the knee. The murderers also placed her bent right leg under her left leg. And like Libby, those involved in the murder had placed tree branches on a very specific pattern on top of Abby. The pattern looks very similar to an asterisk, consisting of 3 tree branches all joined in the middle. Above Abby's head were smaller sticks that had been placed over her hair, crudely mimicking horns or antlers. Also, according to the defense's memorandum, Libby was found nude, blood spots and blood drippings seen all over Libby's body. No blood sprayed or dripped onto the leaves or the tree near Libby's head and sliced neck. Abby found fully clothed, dressed in Libby's sweatshirt and jeans, and Abby found wearing 2 bras. No blood on Abby's clothes, very little blood on Abby's body apart from the fatal wound on her neck. Libby's phone and shoe found under Abby's lower back.
So Richard Allen's defense team, the team of Baldwin and Rossi, blamed the killings on that Odinistic group, saying that it was a ritualistic killing. And remember, it is that Odinist patch that the defense team claimed the prison guards wore on their uniform.
Cult type situation. In a defense memorandum, they state members of a pagan Norse religion called Odinism, hijacked by white nationalists, ritualistically sacrificed Abigail Williams and Liberty German. And the evidence shows that during his pretrial incarceration at Westville Correctional Facility, Richard Allen has been monitored, intimidated, and mentally ambushed by correctional officers who are also members of the Odinite cult. Now, these Westville Corrections officers boldly wore patches on their Department of Corrections uniforms that proclaim, "In Odin we trust," along with another patch displaying symbols of Odinism. That's those interlocking triangles. Now, this is what those patches worn by the guards on their uniforms looked like.
At this point, I just want to mention one thing about Richard Allen. All of the assertions that Richard Allen's attorneys are making right now with an alternative suspect theory are rather problematic because Richard Allen himself made a confession over a phone call. Listen to this. On April 3rd of 2023, Richard M. Allen made a phone call to his wife, Kathy Allen. In that phone call, Richard M. Allen admits several times that he killed Abby and Libby. He admits several times within the phone call that he committed the offenses as charged. His wife, Kathy Allen, ends the phone call abruptly. But it's a little bit problematic, this confession altogether. Listen to this news broadcast from 4 months ago. Now, about 4 months ago from today, November 27th, 2023, was right around the time when Richard Allen's chosen defense attorneys released the 126-page document that outlined the alternative suspect theory. So here's Bob Motta commenting on Richard Allen's confession.
All right, let's bring in now criminal defense attorney and host of the Defense Diaries podcast, Bob Motta. Bob, thank you so much for your time. So we just heard Alex's report there. We also heard from the prosecution that Allen allegedly confessed to these murders. We're seeing in the court docs. He told his wife and he told her multiple times during a phone call. Is this a smoking gun? If so, how much?
It absolutely could be. So I was in the courtroom back on the 15th of June when that revelation kind of hit. And at that point, they didn't get into it. There was a sidebar. The attorneys had gone up in front of the judge after the confessions were brought out in open court. And then, of course, everybody in the gallery was like, oh, my God, there's confessions. So we were all dying to know what he said. And at that point, we never got to hear it. So when these 118 documents dropped yesterday, obviously, all of us that have been following this case from the beginning, started diving in and we started to get more details. And the details that mattered to me at that time was when he made the confessions. Because if they were early on in terms of him being incarcerated back on November 3rd of 2022, that's when he first got moved to Westville Prison. And he is being held in a prison, not a jail. But, when that happened, if it's closer in time to that, the argument that his mental illness or any kind of purported mental illness would have made those somewhat arguable in terms of whether or not they were valid confessions much, much weaker. Now, when you go to the fact that he's been incarcerated and basically in segregation 23 hours a day, it's a stronger argument for the defense, but I think there's some real problems with it. I think when you kind of dive into these documents, the things that stuck out to me were the fact that the defense is kind of creating some revisionist history, because when you look at the dates of their visits, and I'm talking about Rosie and Baldwin when they went to go visit their client, there was a date that they said that they were there, and it was a typo in the actual motion. They stated in the motion that they were there on the 23rd of April, 2023, but I think they meant March 23rd, because in the next paragraph, they talk about on April 3rd, which is when this smoking gun phone call takes place between Allen and his wife, where he makes all these admissions about killing the girls. That is 10 days later. So they must have been talking about March. And when they're talking about his mental well-being in March and late March, they said he was fine. So, and then as soon as he makes these confessions, all of a sudden, now his mental well-being is destroyed, and he can't form sentences. He can't have communication of any kind of substance with his lawyers. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be a real tough challenge for the defense to try to mitigate these potential bombshell confessions.
So, Bob, let's talk about that. His mental health is, apparent or alleged deteriorating mental health. Do you think that's going to impact the trial?
It depends. When I left that hearing on the 15th, I was stunned that they hadn't challenged his competency yet. And there's two different things. I mean, I want our audience to understand that challenging, a defendant's competency is completely different than saying they're insane and putting forth an insanity defense. They're two completely different standards and deal with two completely different things. In terms of if they're saying that he is incapable of assisting in his own defense now, then they should be challenging his competency. And I'm a bit surprised that they haven't. At this point, it seems like it's legal maneuvering by the defense in terms of they are trying to figure out the best way to deal with this bombshell, because they didn't know what happened. I'm imagining what happened is that after this phone call that his wife, Kathy, called them saying, he just confessed to everything. What is going on? And then they ran out to the prison and they did a visit on the 4th, the day following that phone call. And that's at that point is when we start hearing about all the issues, mental issues, and like they were saying he had some psychotic, issues that were arising that they weren't able to communicate with him. So it's going to be a very, very tough challenge for the defense to overcome these confessions.
Yeah, no doubt. So much more will come out.
It was on October 5th, 2023, that law enforcement was notified of a leak in evidence related to the Delphi murder case. The evidence includes sensitive crime scene photos, and it had been spread online and distributed to YouTube and podcast creators. We now know that the person who leaked this material was Mitchell Westerman, age 41, of Westfield, Indiana. He has been charged with 1 count of conversion after he allegedly took photos of sensitive crime scene evidence related to the 2017 Delphi murder case, which, as we just mentioned, was later leaked online. So Mitchell was apparently visiting one of Richard Allen's chosen attorneys, Andrew Baldwin, and apparently he snuck into the room where the evidence was laid out on a table and took it upon himself to take pictures of this evidence. As if this story isn't already salacious enough, here's what happened with the photos. The photos were sent from Mitchell Westerfield to a man named R, who's also known as the Fisher Man in court documents. R sent the photos to Mark, and Mark sent the photos to the Murder Sheet podcast and likely other YouTube and true crime podcasters. Very unfortunately, R, about a week or a week and a half later, after being questioned by officials, R departed this earth in a way that we are not supposed to name by proper name on YouTube. It was a very, very sad turn of events. Now, it was the Murder Sheet podcast, the two people that run the Murder Sheet podcast, who contacted law enforcement in about 24 hours after receiving the photos that were stolen from the attorney's office by Mitchell Westerman. And that is when law enforcement was notified of the leak evidence on October 5th, 2023. Now, what happens is absolutely remarkable. The judge comes out and makes a statement saying that the two attorneys, Baldwin and Rossi, the defense attorneys for Richard Allen's chosen attorneys, well, they were originally appointed to him as public defenders, but it seemed they were doing a really great job for him. They are the ones who filed that 126-page motion with the alternate theory of a suspect. The judge comes out and says that these two attorneys, Rossi and Baldwin, stepped down from the case.
We've had an unexpected turn of events, ladies and gentlemen. Earlier this afternoon, the defense attorneys have withdrawn their representation of Mr. Allen. Mr. Baldwin made an oral motion to withdraw. I granted that oral motion to withdraw, and Mr. Rosie will be submitting a written motion to withdraw, I'm assuming within the next couple of days. They have confirmed with the court that Mr. Allen's financial situation remains static, meaning he is continuing to be entitled to appointed counsel. I will reach out to public defenders to make that appointment. As Mr. Allen is now without counsel, I've ordered him transported back to the Department of Correction. I have asked the attorneys to provide all of the discovery previously provided back to the state of Indiana. I know I entered a protective order on the discovery, and honestly, I don't remember when that was. I think it was in April of this year, perhaps, maybe sooner. But the attorneys have been ordered to provide all of that discovery back to the state. And if you would maintain that until such time as it can be turned over to successor counsel, I would appreciate that, Mr. McClelland. I've also asked the defense attorneys to cooperate with successor counsel. They're not required to do that, but I think that they will in the best interests of Mr. Allen. They're not required to provide any of their work product, but they will be required and have indicated that they will cooperate with successor counsel.
So Judge Gall accused attorneys Baldwin and Rossi of gross negligence having to do with the evidence leak when Mitchell Westerfield stole that evidence from Baldwin's office. Mitch Westerfield, who was a friend and former associate of Mr. Baldwin's, when he went in there, stole the evidence, although there were security cameras and locked doors in that office. All of a sudden, the judge is saying gross negligence and claiming that Baldwin and Rossi stepped down from the case themselves. Well, we later find out in a transcript that was released in a closed door meeting between the attorneys Baldwin and Rossi and the judge, with a court reporter present just before this announcement that the judge made that you just heard. In that closed door meeting, we learn, and the lawyers claim, that they did not, in fact, step down from the case. Richard Allen's attorney, Rossi, says that they were forced to step down from the case or they would face public shaming. The transcripts support this claim. Now, just a few days ago from today, November 27th, 2023, the transcript of that closed-door conversation that the court reporter reported was released. And here is what it says in part.
It pains me to say this, but the totality of these circumstances demonstrate gross negligence and incompetence on the part of the defense team. This is Judge Gull talking. She says, I'm unsatisfied with your representation of Mr. Allen. I am gravely concerned about his rights to have competent, non-negligent representation. He currently doesn't have that right now because what you have demonstrated is negligence and incompetence. Now I'm sharing my thoughts with you privately. I don't want to say this in open court. I would encourage you to talk privately about what you wish to do. Well, Mr. Baldwin, he responds, I'm not good at reading between the lines. So the court or the judge says, you're a lawyer. That's what you do for a living. Mr. Baldwin responds, when you said have a private conversation, are you talking the four of us? Or the court interjects and says, or the judge, I'm not talking about you. I'm not accusing the state of gross incompetence and negligence. I am finding gross incompetence and negligence with you. Mr. Rosie says, I'm going to file a motion to withdraw. I don't want to do it, but I don't think I have a choice at this point. The options I've been given without any notice by the court are really either I withdraw or I'm going to be publicly shamed, and that's the way I see this. But Mr. Baldwin says, I'm the same. I'm stunned. I don't know what to say, so I'll just say I'm moving to withdraw orally.
Attorneys Baldwin and Allen tried to come back into the case as private counsel. They are so committed to this case and to Richard Allen's defense. And I personally believe that they believe Richard Allen is not guilty of this crime, or why would they do this? They tried to come back into the case as private counsel, pro se counsel, without being paid by Richard Allen, since Richard Allen, being incarcerated now, certainly cannot afford the attorney's fees. The judge wouldn't allow that. So Allen and Rossi, who have now retained their own counsel, filed a writ of mandamus. And a writ of mandamus is asking a higher court to force a lower court to do their judicial duty. So they have filed a writ of mandamus to come back on as Richard Allen's counsel in this case and to remove Judge Gall, the Gall that kicked them off the case, off of this case. Now, it should also be said that Richard Allen has also told the court outright that he wants Rossi and Baldwin to be his counsel. So in not allowing Rossi and Baldwin to be Richard Allen's counsel, many believe, and I am one of them, that she is impeding his 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendment rights. So that is basically where we are at with the Delphi case right now. And just today, the court gave the judge a certain date to respond to this writ of mandamus, which in part asks her to step down from the case. Wow, what a twisted case this has turned out to be. Please leave a comment below and let us know what you think. We all want to know what you think. Okay, so yeah, what do you think? We all want to know what you think. Now, Gregory Worth says, and this is what I felt like I heard too. Gregory Worth says, it sounded like she almost laughed when she said, now that Richard Allen is without legal counsel. See, I kind of felt that way as well. Now, I've been following your comments as I was playing that video, and I see that some of you are saying, you know, that the judge had the right to do so, and then there's other thoughts too. Now, the judge does judicially have the power to remove ineffective counsel for a defendant if they truly believe that the counsel is ineffective. But here, let me look up something. Okay, just one second. Hold it. I just got to look this up really quick. Everybody take a breather, soak it all in. Okay, so what we have to think about is when a judge is making a move, a really profound move from, I talked to Alex, who I refer to as Watch the Obsession Legal Counsel, and I've also watched on YouTube a number of lawyers. Would I watch the, let's see, The Lawyer You Know? Of course, everyone knows that I love The Lawyer You Know. There's also the Harvard lawyer. I like her a lot. There's a woman called Natalie, Lawyer Chick. I like her a lot. And all of them seem to be in agreement. They're practicing lawyers, that the move that the judge made here was a really wild, extravagant, out of the ordinary move to remove Rick Allen's legal defense team, particularly when Richard Allen wanted that legal defense team. So when the judge is making, you know, decisions like that, they need to stay in line, of course, with someone's 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendment rights. 5th Amendment breaks down into 5 rights or protections: the right to a jury trial when you're charged with a crime, protection against double jeopardy, protection against self-incrimination, the right to a fair trial, and protection. Oh, where's that coming from? Okay, got it. Hold it. It's not supposed to play yet. Wait, I gotta wait for my peeps. And the right and protection against taking the property of government without compensation. And then we also want to be protecting a person's 6th Amendment rights, which it gives citizens a series of rights in criminal trials. These rights include the right to a fast and public trial by an impartial jury, to be aware of criminal charges, to confront witnesses during the trial, and to have witnesses appear in trial, and the right of legal representation. And the language goes on to say that the legal representation should be zealous. So in my opinion, just the motion that Richard Allen's two attorneys, Baldwin and Rossi, the two that were removed from the trial by Judge Gull, I mean, that 126-page motion that they put out documenting the theory of an alternative suspect and the whole Odinism theory. I mean, man, I don't even know. That took me like days to get through. I mean, not literally days to read it, but I read it a little bit after work, read it a little bit during my lunch hour. It took me a long time to get through so I could digest it all. If that is not zealous representation, then my gosh, I don't know what is. What is zealous representation then? So let me bring another something here into the stream. Let's see, what was that? So it's the judge in the Delphi murder trials. Because now we're working up to the writ of mandamus that was filed by the two attorneys that were taken off the case. They now have their own legal counsel representing them since the judge is accusing them of gross negligence, and it is known that that man, Mitchell Westerfield, did take photos of that evidence that was leaked from Attorney Baldwin's war room. He claims that the door was locked, that there's security cameras, that all the proper procedures were in place. And, all of those lawyers, the one that I talked to, my friend Alex, and those 3 lawyer channels that I watch on YouTube all said, hey, listen, can I guarantee that would never, ever, ever happen in my law office? No, I can't. We take all those proper precautions, but if someone is going to be, dead set on being sneaky and they know that you have their trust. Mitchell Westerfield was a former associate of Attorney Baldwin's, and he was a friend of Attorney Baldwin's. He's somebody who had his trust. So you let somebody that you trust, a former or a colleague, somebody else who is practicing law, into your space. The last thing you think is that he's going to break into your war room to take pictures of evidence in this nationally renowned trial. I mean, that's just really crazy. That man committed a crime by taking pictures of that evidence and dispersing it to whoever he did. It ultimately ended up on YouTube and with various podcasters. He was breaking a law. It was not Attorney Baldwin himself that was breaking a law. Now, that is how I see it. But I mean, I do understand there's different opinions, and I don't think, I think that they're all completely legitimate. So let's see. Georgia Jakes, hi, how are you doing? Says, no, he didn't. Legit said he did. Oops. Like the witness statements that don't match the PCA statements, those are recorded. How will Mick get around those? Well, that is a very good point. And we do have Richard Allen's confession, that I just played a news, recording of them talking about that, where he apparently on a recorded line with his wife confessed to these murders a number of times, not just once, but a number of times. All right, so let me bring this into the stream here. Let me square it up. And so this is from, what is the date on this? It says Richard Allen accused of killing Abigail Williams in Liberty in February of 2017. And the title is Judge in the Delphi murder case defends her actions to the Indiana Supreme Court. So that is the filing that was filed just today. It's a little slippery slope here. All right, got it. All right, let me play this.
We received the documents just filed by the special judge for the Delphi murders case. Our Rich Nye has been reviewing them.
And Rich joins us in studio to take a look at how the judge is now responding to the orders from the Indiana Supreme Court. Rich?
Scott, today was the deadline for Judge Francis Gold to respond in the first of 2 cases before the Indiana Supreme Court filed by civil attorneys for Richard Allen. And in this case, the attorneys asked the state's highest court to make Judge Gold follow the rules about all court documents being part of the public record unless sealed for a specific reason. Judge Gold responded with a legal brief through her attorney late this afternoon. The judge argues that she did not abuse her discretion in managing the court records. She says most of the request is a moot point because she has already ordered most of the documents in the case to be made public. And she says the clerk's office is ultimately in charge of court records, not the judge. So we wait now to see what the Indiana Supreme Court decides in that case. Some court records dating back to June became available for the first time today. We got our first look at letters written by an inmate in the Westville Correctional Facility who says he was housed in a cell right above Richard Allen. That inmate says, "I have witnessed Richard Allen being abused and mistreated by correction officers." That inmate was scheduled to testify at a hearing in June regarding what he witnessed, but he refused to come out of his cell and travel to Carroll County. He said he had been beaten up by correction officers in retaliation for reporting the abuse of Allen, and he feared even more mistreatment if he testified. Now, there's an even bigger deadline still looming before the Indiana Supreme Court. That is November 27th. That's the deadline for the judge and anyone else to respond to the request for the case. Rosie and Andrew Baldwin and Judge Gohl to be replaced as a special judge in this case. That's also the deadline for the judge to provide a transcript of the October 19th in-chambers meeting where Rosie and Baldwin say they were coerced to resign.
Okay, I'm sorry. I pulled the wrong one in because that already happened. We already have the transcript. But I want to just take a look at, let's see, where is it? At that letter that was submitted from a former inmate who was housed with Richard Allen, because this is something that is rather new and definitely kind of interesting. As I get us all caught up on the case on this channel, at least. All right. Let's see if this is here.
While Officer Quentin Davis violated.
We get back to the beginning
His
here.
former defense attorney have been fighting to get him moved because they say he's being mistreated there. They claimed his physical and mental health has been suffering, and a fellow inmate.
And I mean, there's no doubt about that. Look at the man. I mean, compare the pictures of him before, or even, you know, his picture when he was arrested to how he looks now. The man is obviously physically and mentally suffering. There ain't no doubt about that. So the question is he physically, mentally suffering because he's tortured by memories of what he did? Or is he physically, mentally suffering because he's being abused in the jail? Or perhaps a combination of both?
Who had agreed to testify in the case is speaking out about Allen's treatment behind bars. In a handwritten letter to the court, Robert Baston wrote, "I was housed in a cell, A2206, just above Richard Allen's cell at A107, due to being a voice on how Richard Allen was being mistreated by corrupt sergeants. Security cameras will show Sergeant Brandon Williams slamming to the floor and violently breaking my foot and ankle, and then intimidating the nurse not to treat my injuries. Sergeant Brandon Williams and officers hold me while Officer Quentin Davis violently punched me in the ribs and stomach, while Officer Mr. Motts kneed me in the face. I was placed on stripped cell and my personal property was taken. When I eventually received my property back, my legal documents were either destroyed, lost, or taken due to incriminating recorded dates and times. Some of those recorded dates and times concern how Richard M. Allen was being abused and mistreated by staff and officers. Again, I have witnessed Richard M. Allen being abused and mistreated. I, Robert Batson, ask this court to report this corruption to the proper authorities to investigate." All right, let me go to you.
Okay, so that is somebody, an inmate who is housed with Richard Allen, saying that he has witnessed Richard Allen being abused. Now, why would he come forth and say that if it wasn't true? Would he have any other reason to come forth and say that? Now, he was supposed to testify in a hearing. He decided not to. We don't know the details of why that is, but it definitely is certainly an interesting point. Okay, so back to what is going on today here. This is what I wanted to bring into the stream. Let's see. So this one is Delphi Murders stream here. All right, present. Stop screen. Start screen. Love you, StreamYard. Thank you for staying strong for me today. All righty, here we go. I think that should bring full screen for you. And yes, it does. All right, let me play this one. Volume up and play.
Fox 59 Newsroom.
And we start with breaking news now first at 4 as a judge in the Delphi murders case responds to requests by the state Supreme Court. Thanks for joining us. I'm Aaliyah Blackburn.
And I'm Nick McGill. That filing just came down in the last few minutes here. Fox McQuaid down studio and brief details. That's the only document we got today. There's a lot in the past 60 minutes here.
In the last hour, we have received 2 responses, one from the Attorney General, who said he wasn't even part of this case anymore, and the other from Judge Fran Gall herself, who interfered the defense team of Delphi defendant Richard Allen. Attorney General Todd Rokita's office said a couple weeks ago that it was bowing out as Judge Gull's representative before the Indiana Supreme Court. But that didn't stop the AG from issuing this opinion today that throws legal cold water on defendant Richard Allen's attempt to hold on to the defense team of his choice. When former defense attorneys...
Let me just tell you, in Judge Gull's response to the writ of mandamus today, she said that she denies Richard Allen's petition for her to step down and for him to reinstate his defense attorneys of choice, Rossi and Baldwin. Now, the Attorney General of Indiana, who had previously said, I'm hands off with this case, I'm not going to get involved in it anymore, threw his opinion in the ring along with Judge Gull's and backed up what Judge Gull had to say. So this is what they're talking about now.
Andrew Baldwin and Bradley Rosie stepped aside under pressure from the judge. They said they and their legal community friends filed a handful of writs and motions seeking Indiana Supreme Court direction on remedies they claim are crucial to representing defendant Richard Allen against the charges that he killed Abby Williams and Libby German outside of Delphi in 2017. Allen, through his former attorneys, wants Judge Fran Gull removed from the case for alleged bias while reinstating Baldwin and Rosie, who would work for free, and also asked for a speedy trial. The advisory opinion from Todd Rokita's office argues that by seeking Supreme Court guidance, Allen's team jumped the process. It needs the judge herself to rule against them before they can go to the appeals court, and that Judge Gull does have the authority to seek his attorneys' resignations, which they verbally gave, and the defendant has not formally asked for a speedy trial within 70 days. All this, of course, was predicated by the unauthorized leak of crucial crime scene evidence to a friend of the defense team. But Rokita argues, we don't know if Richard Allen even understands the complexity of the issue or other matters in order to make his own defense decisions because it has not yet been argued in court. Now, as we mentioned, a lot of these filings just came down in the last hour or so. I guess to no one's surprise, the Attorney General's filing mirrors what the private attorney for Judge Gull has already written. This came down in the last 10 minutes. I'm going to read this. We will bring you a full update coming up at 5 o'clock.
Just another the latest development that comes.
That is true.
They seem to come hourly here. All right. Russ McQuaid, thank you so much. We're going to keep tabs on that.
Okay, so let me just read a couple of comments here. So Sis Fishes says, well, how you doing, sis girl? Love ya. Says, I don't understand why she has jurisdiction over denying them to try Richard Allen's case pros. To that point, it's the same as a private hired counsel, and she has no right to say who he can or can't hire privately. So that is the argument that Alex, the What's the Obsession legal counsel, and the other attorneys that I have watched, you know, the lawyer that you know, and the Harvard lawyer, and Natalie lawyer chick, they're all basically saying the same thing that you are, suspicious that he, I'm sorry, can't read comments talking at the same time, that although the judge has the right and the privilege to, ask a counsel to step down if they're not providing zealous and adequate legal counsel to a defendant. What happened as far as that Mitchell Westerman, breaking into that room in Andrew Baldwin's office and taking photos of the evidence and disseminating it to a number of different people, or at least to one person, to M, who gave it to R, who gave it to Mark, who gave it to the Murder Sheets podcast. And then we know that R, also known as Fisher Man in the documents, after being questioned by authorities, committed suicide, which is such a tragedy. We are so sorry for that and for his family. They say that doesn't rise to the level of not providing adequate or zealous legal counsel. And there's a lot of evidence of adequate and zealous legal counsel, as can be cited in the 126-page motion offering an alternative suspect defense for the defendant. The latest news, Sub Rosa, is just the judge's response. So here is the judge's response. Now, it's 23 pages. And again, the judge submitted this response, although she is apparently not feeling well. Don't know what's wrong with her, but she has been home, kind of like on sick rest. And I just want to read, a few points in this. I read through the 23 pages really quickly before this live stream. That's why I backed it up 15 minutes so I could read through this. And a lot of it is legalese. And I think that we would need an attorney here to work through some of it, but we can work through some of the points. So, this was the Indiana Attorney General's response to the petition. Oh, I wanted the judges. Okay. Well, that's all right. Let's see. Let me see here. Let me make sure I'm looking at the right document. So this is the state of Indiana versus Carroll County Honorable Judge Francis C. Gall, who is the respondent. Okay, but this is the state's Attorney General basically backing up the points that the Honorable Judge Fran Siegel had made. So he says, at Chambers meeting before the hearing, Judge Gall informed Baldwin and Rossi of her, quote, concerns regarding the defense team and the totality of the circumstances surrounding your representation of Mr. Allen. Judge Gall outlines her concerns, and then they're bullet pointed. Improper comments to the public. After stating they would not talk about the case, Baldwin and Rossi issued a press release that was potentially violative of ethics rules. Conflict of interest. Rossi filed tort claims on Allen's behalf against the DOC. Now, all of the the one attorney that I spoke to, Alex, the WATC Obsession Legal Counsel, and all the three other attorneys that I watched, Lawyer, Harvard lawyer, and Natalie Lawyer Chick, all said that they don't, all of them, or at least 3 or 4 of them said, I can't remember if Lawyer, commented on this or not, that there is no problem with a criminal defense attorney also filing a civil claim. That happens all the time. So this one issue that the judge has and that the attorney general is kind of backing up, that the conflict of interest, that Rossi filed a tort claim on Allen's behalf against the DOC, is kind of bogus. When you're filing a tort claim, we saw this in the Idaho case where the Gonsalveses filed some tort claims against the University of Idaho, the Idaho State Police, and I think the city of Moscow. It's just kind of a placeholder. So if you find out that there was, in fact, wrongdoing at a later date, you still have the right to file a civil claim. That is normal order of legal business, as far as I understand, from all the experts that I have asked or have heard speaking about this issue. The Attorney General also says there's a protective order violation. Baldwin negligently released discovery to Brandon Woodhouse, who disseminated it to the public. And I don't even know who Brandon Woodhouse is, to be honest. Baldwin did not alert the court or the state to the release. The only name that I have heard so far was Mitchell Westerman. So I'm going to have to look into that further. Also, another issue, filing motions with inaccuracies and falsehoods. The pleadings regarding safekeeping of Allen and the DOC contained proof false information. Well, we did just hear of that, jailmate of Richard Allen saying that he was abused while in custody. So we'd have to know more about what the issue is there. Another protective order violations, Baldwin was the source of more leaked discovery, which spawned a criminal investigation and may have resulted in a suicide. Well, again, if Baldwin had the evidence in an office where there were locked doors and where there were security cameras, as he claims was the case, then somebody else coming in there and committing a crime and essentially stealing the evidence, I don't know if we can say that's his fault. I don't know. That might be an issue that, a court could make a determination on definitively, but I myself, I guess, just don't know enough about that issue. It doesn't sound to me like Alec Baldwin can be at fault for someone else committing a crime in his office. Judge Gall stated that she did not want to say this in open court, but would if she had to. Judge Gall confirmed that if Baldwin and Rossi did not withdraw, she would remove them. After consultation with Allen, Baldwin and Rossi chose to withdraw. When withdrawing their appearances, Baldwin and Rossi claimed it was unfair because they were forced between being accused of misconduct in open court or withdrawing. In open court, without Baldwin and Rossi present, Judge Gall announced they had withdrawn. I don't know, when you read the transcripts, it to me does sound as though they were basically forced to withdraw. I don't know what you guys think. Let's see, where did I want to get down to on here? Page 10 of the argument, I think. The request that the court reinstate Baldwin and Rossi as Allen's court-appointed attorneys is inappropriate for a writ. A writ of mandamus, that is a plea to a higher court to force the lower court to carry out its judicial duty. A writ of mandamus reinstating Allen's former attorneys is not presently warranted. The conditions precedent for a writ are not satisfied as the claim was not clearly presented to the trial court, and a remedy by appeal is adequate. Even were the court to review the merits of Allen's request, the record is not sufficiently developed for the court to resolve the question. Appeal is both adequate and preferred to review whether trial court abused its discretion in removing counsel. He says Allen did not seek interlocutory appeal of either the trial court's order granting withdrawal of counsel or a subsequent order declining to allow counsel to appear pro bono. The record does not indicate that Allen asked his newly appointed counsel to appeal, nor does relator explain why original action counsel could not file a limited appearance to seek certification of the court's order, as counsel did not file motions in preparation of this action. So what I understand they're saying there is counsel just reappeared saying, okay, we're going to be pro bono, pro se, private counsel now. We're not the court-appointed counsel anymore, but we want to be his private counsel, and we are not charging Richard Allen for our services. And the court denied that. Now, it seems to me that this filing is saying they did not go about doing all of that, trying to be his pro se, pro bono legal counsel through the appropriate means. Can't we all just get along? Hello there, Rodney King. Right? Can't we all just get along? Wait, guys, really, seriously, stop arguing in chat, please. Like, just, let's just not. And Sis says these topics can be very triggering and conversations can get out of bounds quick. So let's agree to disagree and move on. I think that's a good idea. Thank you so much, Sis. No, I don't think McJade's scolding anyone. Oh, goodness gracious, people. So what do you guys have to say about any of the issues that are at hand here? Do you think that the judge should step down? Do you think that Richard Allen's chosen legal counsel, according to what he says, which is Baldwin and Rossi, should be reinstated at his legal counsel? I'm going to put the link to panel up here for the last couple of minutes. If anyone wants to come up and state their opinion, you're welcome to do so. Okay. Patty Cake says, hi, Patty Cakes, how are you doing? I believe Odin guards threatened Richard Allen that they would hurt his family if he didn't confess. Do you think so? Now, that would make the defense's theory of an alternative theory of a suspect fit into place, in my opinion. The one thing, other than the fact that it's so super out there, but some of that theory of an alternative suspect has been actually proven to be true, although it seems really wild and crazy to most minds who read it. If it were not for his confession, I might actually bite on that alternative suspect theory. So if his confession, even to his wife on the phone, was coerced, that would make the defense's theory of an alternative suspect hold some water, in my opinion. Sub Rosa says he doesn't have the right to choose his counsel if he's not paying for his counsel. Well, one of the arguments is that, and I think this was spoken about in one of the videos that I played, that, a right to legal counsel is a right to an adequate, zealous, and sufficient legal counsel. It's not necessarily your right to choose any counsel you want. Now, where does the matter of whether or not a defendant is paying for the counsel or not come into play? I don't know. In the court, Lady Justice is supposed to be blind of all of the factors, including, level of wealth or poverty or anything in between that a defendant, that might describe in a defendant. It's, you're supposed to get a legal representation regardless of how much money you have in your bank account. So where does that come into play? I honestly don't know, but it's a very good question. And I'm going to ask Alex, our What's the Obsession legal counsel. Hi, True Crime Junkie. How are you doing? Welcome. Sub Rosa says the judge is the authority in her court. I respect her. And, you know, and I definitely tend to agree with that statement. Absolutely 100% Sub Rosa. I still am not 100% clear on if the reasons that she removed Richard Allen's legal counsel were legitimate or not. Now, there was some article I said that I had up here. That wasn't it. That said, and I don't know if I can find it now. The judge had already made up her mind that she wanted to remove legal counsel before that second leak happened that went to R, that went to Mark, that went to murder sheets, and R, or the fisherman, ended up killing himself. She was saying, this article was saying that she had her mind made up prior to that happening. And it might be in this article here, so I'm just going to read this last article. So we have, let me bring this into the stream. Hi, Idaho Charlie. How are you doing? Welcome. Nice to see you. Okay, so the Indiana State's Attorney General echoes Delphi judge in asking Indiana Supreme Court to throw a petition calling for her removal. In Carroll County, Indiana, Judge Fran Gall said a petition to the Indiana Supreme Court calling on her to be removed from the Delphi murders trial should be thrown out due to the defense not using proper legal avenues in order to seek their end goal. So yeah, that's what her argument is all about, the defense not using the proper legal channels, as it says right here, to reach the end goal. It's not really anything that's substantive, in my opinion. It's more procedural. So the article says Gall wasn't alone in calling for the High Court to throw out the petition, as Indiana Attorney General Todd Rokita, I don't know how to say that last name, echoed many of Gall's same sentiments in a separate filing that also asked the court to reject the petition. Westfield man charged in the Delphi murders evidence leak. So now this is talking about Mitchell Westfield. Both Gall and Rokita called the writ of mandamus filed with the Indiana Supreme Court the legal petition that not only called for Gall's removal, but the reinstatement of the accused murderer's Richard Allen's legal defense team, quote, improper, end quote, with both stating that Allen should have pursued an appeal if he thought Gall was abusing her power by removing his original defense team. Now that sounds logical to me. In his filing, the Indiana State's Attorney General argued that a writ of mandamus was inappropriate for pursuing the reinstatement of legal counsel, and the appellate court process is the adequate and preferred way to present these legal arguments, not a writ of mandamus. The Indiana State's Attorney General pointed out that Allen didn't appeal these actions or file a motion to disqualify despite having the chance. A writ is inappropriate because Allen has a remedy through the appellate process. He can file his motion for change of judge. If denied, he can appeal the decision. Let's see here. Okay, and that's a lot of stuff we already heard. So she met that deadline. Okay, so that wasn't the article I was looking for, but so that's what we have so far. So what comes next? So they filed the writ of mandamus. The judge filed the response saying, this is not the appropriate avenue. You are not going through the proper legal channels to reach your end goal. The Indiana State's Attorney General echoed that same sentiment, and where we're going to go from here, anybody could guess. I mean, as far as I see it, I guess the problems with that are, I just kind of feel like Richard Allen should have the legal defense that he wants if they weren't problematic, if they were providing a eloquent and adequate defense, which in my opinion, it seems like they were, but I don't know, maybe I'm missing something there. But also assigning a new defense attorney or a new defense team to this very complicated trial is going to push his trial out, I would say, I don't know, I'm just guessing, but at least a year. And one of the rights that, you know, he has access to is the right to a speedy trial. And it just feels to me like replacing his counsel at this point is going to violate, if nothing else, his right to a speedy trial. So Sub Rosa says they weren't problematic. Oh my goodness, Kelly. So just in a few sentences, and I think you're just agreeing with Judge Gall here, and I respect that, and I'm listening to your opinion, and I don't have any problem with it. What do you think is problematic? So Sub Rosa says the grand odinous theory. Well, you know, there is like some substance to that. I'm going to bring Gregory up in just a minute. So happy you're coming up. You can unsubscribe anytime you want. You just hit that subscribe button again and you'll be unsubscribed, Unicorn 69. You know, there is, you know, some substance to the odinous theory. We've had some people go on different channels talking about being odinous themselves. Some people that were actually named or implied in that 126-page motion spoke out about it and said, yeah, I am an odinous. I mean, the state of Indiana did itself say, yes, it was a problem that some of our guards were wearing that odinous patch. I mean, they admitted to that. You know, just upon doing research into odinism, it is something that is prevalent in Indiana and some of those Midwestern states. And it seems like odinism is a little bit of a problem there, especially in the prison environment. So I'm going to bring Gregory Worth up on the panel, and I'm so excited to see you. Hi, Gregory Worth. How you doing?
Hey, Kelly. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. What do you think here, Gregory?
Well, you know, it's funny, but when this thing first started, like I had just knew that, you know, Richard Allen was guilty, and then the more that's come out since he's been incarcerated, I'm just not so sure anymore. Like I knew for a fact, you know, like, oh yeah, that was him on the bridge. Now I'm not so sure anymore.
I know. I mean, I think if nothing else, Richard Allen's defense team, as we knew it with Baldwin and Rossi, certainly, you know, instilled doubt in the public opinion, which is very important. I mean, the public opinion influences a jury pool, certainly. And, you know, the Harvard lawyer, when I was watching her, she described it as, and she was giving them kudos for, you know, kind of changing that course. She said, think of it as like a gigantic ship being pushed down a strait with rushing water. And the water has, you know, so much velocity and magnitude and power to it that nothing is going to turn the course of that ship and that strait that's being pushed down, you know, through the strait with all of this powerful water. And what they did was essentially to turn that ship. And that's not an easy thing to do, she said.
Yeah. Well, you know, if you were going to frame somebody, there would be no better way than for someone to be tipped off that you were going to be there.
Right.
And so, you know, I'm kind of on the fence, but, you know, I think there's a possibility he was set up. But, you know, truthfully, Kelly, I don't know if the man's going to live.
I know. I mean, I mean, his health is diminishing daily, it appears. My gosh. Do you think he's being abused in the prison system?
I do. I think he is being abused. And
I think he is too.
And I think those confessions were probably coerced in one way or another.
Yeah. I mean, if it is true, okay, so if it is true, let's set it up like this. I'm just going to set it up. Now, don't anyone freak out. I'm just going to set it up the way the defense framed it with their alternative suspect theory, okay? So this is how they framed it. It's this odinous ritualistic cult that committed these crimes. Now, McJay says, and justice for Abby and Libby, McJay says, and McJay is someone I know well and trust very much, and she says, to Patty Cakes, I've seen the leaked crime scene photos. It's very suspicious for sure. I won't say more than that out of respect for the families and victims. So, McJay, can I just ask you this one question? So are you saying that the way that whatever appeared in those leaked crime scene photos, it looked like it was something ritualistic? the way either the bodies were placed or the sticks on the bodies were placed, because I believe that's what you're saying. So if we continue to go, down the road of the defense's theory, so if it is this Odinist group, and the Odinists are, like I said, prevalent in that part of the country. I've done a ton of research on this. The state of Indiana itself said that their prison guards were Odinists and they were wearing those Odinist patches. So now this is Richard Allen, the man, I'm going according to the defense theory, was framed for this crime. Now these guards who are part of the same Odinist group, which would do something so horrific as to kill these beautiful little girls. Now he's in prison. They're Odinists. He's framed. They're just not liking him, because if they pin the crime on him in the first place, there must be something about the man that they're not in love with. They coerce his confession to save, their Odinist counterparts or cult members or whatever it is who actually committed this crime. The defense's theory starts to make a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does. It really does. I didn't realize that particular, what is it? Some kind of Nordic religion or something?
Yeah, it's a Nordic pagan religion. And in the United States prison system, it kind of morphed and was, I can't think of the word right now, but it kind of turned into this more like of a cult, like almost like satanic worshiping kind of situation.
Okay.
Yeah. So, it makes sense if it is within the prison system that happened, and the guards in the prison system are Odinists and they were wearing those patches. Then we have that person whose letter, we just read from, saying that I was Richard Allen's jailmate and I witnessed him being abused. It's like, what is that guy's theory for coming out and saying that?
Yeah, why would he say that? It doesn't make any sense. Yeah. I don't know. I feel, listen, if Richard Allen is guilty, he deserves to stand trial and he deserves to spend the rest of his life in prison. But the man doesn't deserve to die in prison.
No, he doesn't. And it's important to him and for everybody else in this country that his rights are respected, by the court itself, and that his rights are respected fully to like the highest degree of the law.
And why is he in prison and Brian Koberger's in a jail?
Well, they say that he's in a prison. They say that the reason that he's in a prison is because there was a higher level of security and he needed the protection, because in the jail, in the small community of Delphi, this was such an atrocious, egregious crime. And it's such a small community, like basically everybody that worked there was going to have some, personal connection to the victims or their families, that he just would have been pummeled essentially.
Well, I can't believe they couldn't have transferred him to another jail in a neighboring city.
Right. No, I agree with that. It's almost like, if this defense's theory of an alternative theory of a suspect is true, was he put in that prison because they were Odinist guards and they knew that the worst would happen to him? I just want to read this comment here. True Crime Junkie says, it was the investigation document. It isn't like Richard Allen and his lawyers made it up. So how are you so sure? You can't be. They, the investigators, saw exactly what was written, but you don't believe that. I'm not sure who that was to. But now somebody also said, Prosser Gang says, and hey, Prosser Gang, great to see you. And hi, Anaphylaxis. I'm super glad that you're here. Prosser Gang says, people who have seen the actual pics say no horns. Yeah, I saw one gentleman. He was an older gentleman. He liked to play music. I remember he had guitars up on the wall behind him. Just if anybody saw this, he wore glasses. That's all I can remember of him. I don't remember what show it was from or anything. But he said that he saw the pics and he said there were no horns. He said, if anything, they were just like little sticks or twigs. Now, Anaphylaxis says, did Richard Allen's wife coerce him too? He confessed to her. Yeah, we kind of touched on that, Anaphylaxis, because in the video that I first played, we talked about him. I brought up the point of what's problematic for me is Richard Allen did confess to his wife, and the way that it was told was that he confessed to her several times in a prison call, and she hung up abruptly. So the theory that's been put out just during the course of this chat is that he was perhaps coerced to make that confession to his wife. I mean, it is a little bit weird that, you know, for months and months, he didn't make a confession to his wife. And then all of a sudden in one phone call, he just starts confessing profusely. Or maybe that's not weird. Maybe that's how it would happen. I don't know. I don't know. Gosh, this is really crazy. Let's see. Patty Cake says, I shake my head with people who refuse to believe in ritualistic sacrifice. Much more prevalent than anyone realizes. It's real, people. I've been researching it for 15 years. Well, thank you for I consider you an expert on that opinion then, Patty Cakes. I appreciate that. And ritualistic sacrifice is absolutely real. Unfortunately, it has been linked to be the source of a number of crimes that have been committed throughout the United States. And Sub Rosa says he lost weight because he isn't drinking anymore. Well, I mean, let's look at the picture of the man. Let me bring the picture up here. I mean, he is just decrepit. I mean, he's like, wow. You know, let me get this picture of comparing him up. I have a picture that compares him. Let's see. Let me just make this bigger. Just taking my computer a second here. So, I mean, I gotta make this bigger again. And then I've got to back out so I can get to the stream here. Okay. Let's see. Just give me 1 second. So now I'm going to compare. This is a picture, a side-by-side picture of Richard Allen. So, I mean, you know, like, look at the man. I mean, you know, we have a picture one. This was before he was arrested. I mean, look how much like chubbiness he has in his face, and he doesn't have wrinkles in his face. His skin is like very smooth, and he looks like a healthy person. And then, you know, look at this final picture. I mean, and just the wrinkles in his face, and like he always has this look on his face like he just saw Satan, you know. I mean, and if he did it, you know, he just might be tortured by the memories of what he did. And if he did do it, he deserves to be tortured by those memories. But you know, something has happened here.
He almost looks like a man that's, I mean, you know, somebody with dementia, like a mental decline.
Yeah, he does. I agree. Well, let me get into NK pictures. All right, hold it. This is all my backlog of pictures here. And then let's just get this picture here with, you
Look
know,
how they've got the man shackled. Really?
I mean, that's like wild, guys. I mean, you know, a man who is, okay, we say in this country, innocent until proven guilty. So according to our country's laws and all of our rights, this man is innocent because he has not yet been proven guilty. And I mean, look at that. Now, again, if he is guilty, you know, he will be found guilty and he should be found guilty. And, you know, I hope the man goes straight to hell. But in this country, we consider him innocent because he has not been proven guilty. And like, this is hard. This is not good.
No, that doesn't look like someone who's innocent to me.
No.
The way they have him bound like that or shackled like that.
Right. Yeah. Right. I know. I mean, that's really hard. Now, let's see. So Sub Rosa says, I believe in ritual sacrifice. I think that's what the Watts case is about. NK is a ritual murder, is doing a ritual murder. Oh boy. So I'm just not going to go there because, you know, we could go really off on a hook with that. So let's see.
And, you know, he's never, I mean, like you think about like, who was it? That, Letitia Stalk or whoever. I mean,
yeah.
And that other lady who, you know, dismembered her boyfriend. I mean, you know, they tried to escape. Okay. I could see him being shackled like that. He's never tried to escape.
Right. Exactly. No, he hasn't. He's just been, I don't know. It's like I said, part of me thinks, you know, if somebody committed a crime like that and like the guilt is like literally eating you alive, I think that's a figure of speech for a reason. Because I think guilt can eat you alive. Like, is that what is happening? Or is it something much more nefarious? Oh, I don't know. And
you
I
know,
know, Char, go ahead.
I was gonna say the other thing is, and you know, of course, my brain thinks a little different, but it's like maybe one of the reasons that he did the selfie in the bar was because he didn't even, wasn't even thinking about maybe it was just a coincidence that that picture was on the wall. I mean, we don't
Right.
know,
Well, I'm
it's,
sure that picture was on the wall of every public,
yeah,
venue in Delphi at that time, right? So what Gregory is talking about is a picture of Richard Allen, where you can see the picture of, the wanted picture for the Delphi murderer, like right behind him. I think I actually have that picture here in like this reel right here. Yeah. So you see, good. It happened to be the next one. So you can see here's a picture of Richard Allen. And then you see it's circled in red behind him is the composite sketch of the bridge man.
maybe he didn't think about like all the sketches because he knew it wasn't him.
Right. Because, yeah, I mean, because this is either a man going, ha, 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 right, or this is a man just taking a selfie, maybe to send to his wife to say, look, honey, I'm out at wherever. It's just like I told you I was. We don't know. We just don't. We don't know. There's just so much we don't know. So I don't know. But I'm definitely going to be covering more on the Delphi case because I have been following it. That's for sure. And it's time to make some content. So let me just see if there's any more comments. I'm gonna have to end this soon because I got to get up early for work tomorrow.
Kelly, just a quick question, if I could. Do you think the law enforcement themselves, do you think they're corrupt at all? Like
in the Delphi case?
Yeah, like the the people that were so involved.
The perception that I have of law enforcement in the Delphi cases, I personally have never had like any weird feelings about them. I'd be interested to know what other people think here. Here, I have a picture of law enforcement here too. I'd be interested to know what people in chat think. I personally have never gotten any vibes from them like, there's, corruption or coercion or anything like that. But what do you guys think? Do you think so, Gregory?
Well, I just found that, I think it's interesting that the evidence was there all along.
That is interesting. That's a good point.
That's the only thing.
Because what he told someone in law enforcement, was like 3 or 4 days after this happened or something like that. He told them, yeah, I was on the bridge at that time. Mm-hmm. And they never questioned him, although he did fit like the demographic, bill of bridge guy, like height, possibly similar look. Like it could have been a man like Richard Allen. They never went back and questioned him until almost 6 years later.
Right. Seems a little odd.
That is odd. And I mean, that is a big misstep by law enforcement. What do you think about that, anaphylaxis? Patty Cake says, if Richard Allen is guilty, I believe he had accomplices due to the body staging, clothes change, drag to pose in specific positions. I mean, yeah, that is like a lot of work for one person. And you've got to think, yeah. I've heard, it was in one YouTube live stream where it's the same man who saw the pictures. He said that the crime scene. Okay, so if you were looking at one of the leaked pictures of the girls post-mortem, I know it's so sad and so hard to think about, but he said it was remarkably clean. Like, given what he saw of the condition they were in and how clean it was on the ground underneath them, if you get what I'm saying, he thought that it was absolutely improbable that the act took place right there where the pictures were taken, indicating that they would have had to have been moved.
Yeah.
So, and Patty Cake says, yes, law enforcement involved in cover up and framing. Huh. And then, let's see. Prosser Gang says, have you watched Mob Crew? I like Mob Crew a lot. I haven't watched Mob Crew recently, but I'm going to now, tomorrow for sure, now that you mentioned it. They haven't come to mind in a while, but I know they do a good job in this case. Channel Mob Crew does a really good job on this case. He has done the best work on the case I've seen. Oh, yeah. Awesome. Thank you. I'm going to definitely check it out. Yeah. And then Angel D says, all those sketches of the bridge guy are totally different. A gun casing linking someone to a crime scene. How much do we not know? Does law enforcement have a lot we don't know about? You know, that's a very good point, Angel. And that is really interesting because it was a spent shell casing that was supposedly between Abby and Libby that ultimately gave them like the linchpin link to Richard Allen. Why? There was no talk anywhere of any kind of gunshot, any gunshot residue, there was no evidence there that any gun was fired, yet there was a spent shell casing there that was traced to Richard Allen. That is wild.
And I wonder too, Kelly, if somehow, because you commented about the clean area where the girls were found, I wondered if somehow they might have been, where they were cut and they actually were drained in the water.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And I mean, that could definitely be like a ritualistic thing, right? If that was the case.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. My God, this case is just like so immense. This is why I think I've kind of shied away from doing content on it because I'm like, oh my God, this is another freaking bear of a case.
Jump in, Kelly.
I know. It's like I had done videos on Delphi before, but it's been a while. So even like the video I uploaded earlier, I had to like download new pictures again, new streaming footage. I was like, oh God, it's just so much. And just try to get all the details straight. It's just wild.
Well, maybe at least this trial will take place before Kohlberger's. I think his won't be till 2026 or something.
Oh, I know.
That is nuts.
I know, really. I know. In a race, who is going to get there sooner to trial, Richard Allen or Brian Kohlberger? Oh my God. So wait, Sub Rosa says, maybe correcting me, unspent cartridge. Oh, thank you, Sub Rosa. I thought it was spent, not shell casing. Thank you. I really had the wrong idea about that. Thank you. Microabrasions from the extractor mechanism. It's been used in court before. Absolutely. Well, thank you, first of all, for correcting me on that because that is important. But why was it there, Sub Rosa? I'm just like asking you in all seriousness, like what would be your theory of why it was there, if you don't mind? And then Mrs. B says, but didn't they say gun in the video? Maybe a gun, but didn't want it to go off because there were so many other people on the trail. So it was used to intimidate. Yeah, I remember that was a theory that maybe he had if it was Richard Allen, that he had a gun with him when he said, girls down the hill or hey guys down the hill, that he used the gun kind of corral them down the hill as a weapon, as a method of intimidation. Obviously thinking, my God, I don't want to get shot. I better do as he says. Mike Cunningham says, yes, law enforcement has some aces up their sleeve. State police is solid. Okay. Wow. And then Mrs. B said, he also may have emptied the gun right between them, and that's how the bullet fell in between them. Just a theory. Well, that's a legit theory based on what we know. So, all right, guys. Okay. So, and then Sub Rosa says he cycled the gun to make noise, to scare the girls. That's also legitimate. I mean, any of those things could be true. I mean, this is another case where you're like, my God, I hope it goes to trial because, we're also invested in this case and we need these questions answered. Anaphylaxis says, maybe he showed them the gun and racked the slide back to intimidate them, ejecting the round. Yep, anaphylaxis, you would know, and that is exactly. And Sub Rosa is agreeing that's basically what she was saying. So, All right, guys. Well, Gregory, thank you so much for coming
Yeah.
up, and thank you for all you do. I
Enjoyed it.
appreciate you so much. Yeah, thank you. Please come back again.
Yes. I will.
And I think I'm going to end this because I got to get up early for work tomorrow, but there'll be more coming on Delphi and all the other cases we talk about. And thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you, moderators, subscribers, members. Hey, if you're just visiting, if you're part of the replay crew and watching, maybe hit subscribe. We would love to see you again. And thank you again, Gregory. It's wonderful to talk to you. I always absolutely love seeing you here. Now, Crime Junkie just said in response to all the people giving the theories about the gun, said, why would he empty a gun at the site? It doesn't make sense. I guess the only thing I would have to say about that is, like what Anaphlexis and Sub Rosa just said. Maybe, like Anaphlexis said, maybe he showed them the gun and racked the slide back to intimidate them, therefore ejecting the round. So love you too, Mrs. B. Yes, thank you, Sub Rosa. Thank you for being a good sport. Hey, I appreciate that very much. And I'm listening to everything you said. And Prosser Gang, wonderful to see you. Please come back. It's always a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much. Mrs. B says, everybody have a blessed night. And I echo that sentiment. Sub Rosa said he didn't empty the gun, it cycled once. Okay, so you're just like kind of clarifying the question that was asked by Crime Junkie. I see. So just a discussion between you guys. So, all right, everybody, please lock your doors and your windows. Be safe. Be aware of what is around you. Awareness is key. If you see something, say something, because you might make the difference in saving somebody's sanity, health, or life. You never know. And most of all, please, please, please be good to yourself, because I promise you, you deserve it. So be good to yourself. All right. I will see you guys soon. Thank you for being here. And everyone, have a good night. Bye.